La 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 la. I love you. Yes, I do. I love you. Yes, I do. I love you. Yes, I do. I love you, Grandma Helen.
Helen's here.
Yep.
Harry, don't do it, Harry.
So what's for dinner?
Well, Mama, you see, you take the knives and you wipe them like this. And you wipe the handles like this. And then you see you have them all dried and nice. And I put them on my little magnetic board. Like this, and like this. Then I close the drawer. Then I try to find a place, a little home for all these little odds and end pieces.
You know what? You should be a cooking teacher.
You think so?
Yeah.
What makes you think that?
I think you'd be good.
Oh, okay. Now I take my sponge, you see. I wipe off like this. And should stay clean about 5 minutes.
that long?
Right. Then you go like this, and you go like this. Yeah, like that. See? Isn't this beautiful?
Oh, very good.
Oh, now I just wash and wipe and wipe and wash. Are we going to play this back today?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Isn't this wonderful?
Yes, I think this is so beautiful. Do you think Terry is in trouble or something? She's not here yet? She's supposed to be here at 4 o'clock.
Life began Life began for Helen Rood on August 16, 1927, at Women's Hospital in Detroit. She was a large baby, an almost unbelievable 11 3/4 pounds at birth, born to David and Sarah Rood. Her oldest sister Eve described little Helen as being adorable and delicious, a child who had no meanness or anger toward anyone. Sister Dorothy recalled Helen as a happy child, one who was easy to take care of. Both Eve and Dorothy fought over who would take care of her, and both described themselves as feeling as if Helen seemed like their own child. Helen and Dorothy, as children, played paper dolls together. Dorothy would cut them out, and Helen would play with them for hours. Eve recalled that Helen loved other little things besides paper dolls, such things as beads, earrings, petty point, and other intricacies. Both Eve and Dorothy recalled that ever since they could remember, Helen loved to dance. Her mother used to tell her that when she was an infant in her high chair, Helen would sway in rhythm to background music. When Helen got a little older, she would dance around the house. Naturally, she would perform for relatives, which at first she enjoyed, but as she grew older, was annoyed at the idea. Times were tough for Helen as a young child. At age 5, she had an unpleasant experience having her tonsils removed. A year or two later, she contracted scarlet fever and missed almost an entire school year. Envious of her older sister Betty going to school, Helen convinced her mother to send her to kindergarten, even though she was a year younger than her classmates. Her first day at kindergarten was a disaster. The shy, bashful, underage kindergartner bit the beads of her necklace that she was wearing, and to her embarrassment, the beads broke all over the floor. Although school was not her forte, dancing certainly was. At an early age, Helen became a child prodigy at Friedell's dancing studio that was located on Linwood Avenue across from Central High School. At age 12, Helen moved to the top of her class. Her teacher, Friedel Kaplan, was so enthralled with Helen that she gave her private ballet and tap lessons. By age 13, Helen was already a soloist, featured at B'nai B'rith shows and dance recitals at the Masonic Temple. Even at the early age of 6 or 7, Helen learned how to dance. Her father, an accomplished dancer in Europe, taught Helen how to dance the Russian Kazatsky. Together, father and daughter would dance at family weddings while others watched and clapped. But it was really her sister Dorothy who was the first person to encourage Helen to take dancing lessons. Dorothy remembers.
Can I tell you something about my sister Helen? When she was a little girl, I want to bring out her natural talent. She would dance around the house, and she danced beautifully. So I said to my mother, gee, Helen's got a lot of talent. She should go to dancing school. And it turned out I took her on, we went on a streetcar and I would take her to a dancing school, stay with her when she was through and then bring her back home. And she just loved dancing, and this is how eventually she became a dancing instructor. She got a job as a dancing.
On Tuesday, August 25th, 1992, I spoke with Helen's first dancing teacher, Friedel Kaplan. Friedel described Helen as having a beautiful figure, a sweet girl who had lots of talent and showed great promise. She added that Helen was very graceful and was equally talented in both ballet and tap dance. For 50 cents a lesson, Friedel not only taught Helen dancing, but even made her costumes. Friedel gave Helen plenty of solos to do at recitals and at various shows. Dancing continued to occupy Helen through high school at Central. At age 16, she meets Julie Adler, who was dating Helen's cousin, Eddie Sprague. In exchange for taking lessons with Julie, Helen's student teaches dancing to little children. It is there that she was a soloist doing classical ballet. Then, at 17, Helen temporarily loses interest in dancing. Instead, she concentrates on her schoolwork. This disinterest in dancing wouldn't last long. At around age 18, Helen joins Roth and Burdin. Helen joins Roth and Burdin, which was at the time the largest theatrical studio in the Midwest. The studio was very large. It covered an entire floor of the old convention hall on Cass Avenue. At Roth and Burdin, Helen taught dancing. Her first pay was 50 cents, which she proudly displayed to her father. Much to the chagrin of her father and glee to her sisters, Helen hits the road, doing the nightclub circuit in cities such as Columbus, Ohio, New York City, and Baltimore, Maryland. At 18, Helen had to lie to dance in nightclubs. She used her sister Betty's birth certificate to get in, and Betty would help Helen in many ways during this time, especially keeping her company as a traveling companion. This picture is straight out of Helen's scrapbook. This is from the Baltimore nightclub on 914 Monroe Street, July 4th, 1946. Here you see the Casanova Supper Club, Helen Rude Rhythm and Taps. This was in Ohio. This picture is a Detroit Free Press photo. The caption reads, "Different kind of lineup is given the once-over by Inspector Howard Fowler of the Detroit Police Department, and he admits that it's much more pleasant than the usual parade in the show-up room. The cuties are the police rhythmettes, who will take part in the police field day activities August 3rd at the University of Detroit." Helen Rude is the third from the right. This is a picture that was taken from the Detroit News. It says on the bottom, "Rehearsing for their performance Saturday in the Detroit Police Field Day at University of Detroit Stadium are police rhythmettes Anita Trausch, Helen Rude, Marge Malowick, Priscilla Clark, and Dolores Aubrey. The rehearsals are being held at Convention Hall." This is a newspaper ad of Mickey's Show Bar, and featured is Helen Rude, Tops and Taps. Another ad in the newspaper for the Geitz Inn. Again featured is Helen Rude. This is the cover of a program from Roth and Burdin, and in it describes Miss Helen Rude, a professional dance stylist specializing in tap dancing. Miss Helen Rude is rapidly becoming well known in professional circles. Beginners and advanced dance students make rapid progress under her capable direction. In addition to dancing at Rothenburg, Helen also did some modeling. This is a newspaper clipping of Helen, and it says, the caption reads, "At the Builder Show, Gloria Houston left and Helen Rude visiting an exhibit at the Builder Show at Convention Hall through Sunday. This is the new combination log and batten house." This is a studio photograph of Helen modeling some fishing equipment. Here she is again, this time dipping into a freezer. Detroit News photo clipping of Helen on the shoulders of an Ojibwe Indian, and this is for the Sports and Boat Show. This was taken at the Convention Hall in Detroit. Meanwhile, on the road, Helen made big money. Sometimes she would earn up to $75 a night as a soloist. During the Second World War, Helen danced for war vets at VA hospitals. Back home in the studio of Roth and Burnham, Helen learned a great deal from Charlie Roth, who was co-owner and a former celebrated vaudeville entertainer. She learned from him how to create and choreograph new dance steps through mind visualization. During this time, Helen dreamed of moving to California to make it big. Quietly, she made plans with her brother Al to make the big move. A friend of hers who had taught at Roth and Burnham and was living in California wrote letters encouraging Helen to leave Detroit. Helen and Al were ready to leave when she started to date a young man by the name of Bill Zolkauer. On April 10th, 1949, Helen and Bill marry, and Helen abandons her plans to move to California. 3 months after their marriage, Helen becomes pregnant with her first child, Richard, born in 1950. 3 years later, in 1953, Helen gives birth to her first daughter, Terry. A few years after Terry's birth, Helen begins to choreograph and dance at B'nai B'rith shows. Ironically, her future husband, Norman Wachler, would also dance at these shows as well. This is a cover from a program from B'nai B'rith show called Detroit Unlimited, a musical review presented by the dramatic group of the Detroit Lodge chapter of B'nai B'rith. This took place at the Detroit Institute of Arts on January 8, 1957. What's significant about this is that in the program it shows Helen Zolkauer as the choreographer and one of the dancers in one of the shows as Norman Wachler. In 1958, Helen gives birth to her third child, Harry. 5 years later, in 1963, Helen starts her own dance studio in partnership with Norma Schwanger. To start the business, Helen borrows $1,000 from her father. They call the studio, a combination of Norma and Helen's name, Norrell School of Dance. The studio began as a smashing success, starting with an unbelievable 125 students. However, 3 months after opening, Bill Zolkauer dies suddenly. Helen is left taking care of 3 young children. Making matters worse, Norma and Helen quarrel over business matters. A month after her husband dies, Helen splits with Norma. In the meantime, Norrell School of Dance begins to lose students. The office secretary at Norrell agrees to buy out Norma and Helen, but Helen never received a penny. In a year, Norrell closes for good. The 1960s were not kind to dancing. It just wasn't cool to dance. Recognizing this, Helen tries her hand at other jobs. She worked 3 days at Providence Hospital as a medical technician, only to discover that she hated to draw blood from people all day. A job as a receptionist at Agobian & Sons lasted just a few months, but it was a longer time than anybody else had been in her position. Then, for a year and a half, Helen was a salesperson at Davidson's in Birmingham in the women's clothing department. She hated it there too. Then, life took a turn for the better. Helen begins dating Norman Wachler. Norman talks about the early days of their relationship.
And how we got together. It's very difficult for me to remember just when Mother and I met. It was 1955, 1956. We both were participating in a charity show for Hadassah, and Helen was the choreographer, and as I say, I can't remember the exact meeting, but I do know that Helen was a very lovely young lady, and I discovered that she was a very talented choreographer and dancer, and I admired her dancing. And on a few occasions, we met at a social event, a house party, or a masquerade party that Tavi gave for her friends, and we said hello, goodbye. That was it. Helen was married, I was married, and I never dreamed that what the future had in store for us. A lot had to happen before Helen and I could even consider sharing our life together. And because of what happened and the way it happened, I consider our marriage with a certain solemnness, with a sacredness, and I'm a very lucky man to have Helen as my wife. We have a wonderful life together.
Helen turns away from dancing. Helen turns away from dancing to jewelry making as her outlet for creativity. Heavily influenced and trained by her then boyfriend Norman Wachler, Helen creates necklaces and earrings from antique beads she finds in antique stores and shows. To display the jewelry, she has the idea of taking old doll heads and gluing them onto plastic baskets. At antique shows, Helen would sell not only her jewelry, but also the doll displays as well. She calls herself the Earring Lady. In 1969, Helen and Norman marry. In the process, two families come together as one. Helen becomes a mother to Eddie and Buzzy Wachler. In the early 70s, Helen spent several years learning cooking from Charity Suchek, who became her mentor. Friends Marilyn Wallman and Charlotte DeRoven suggest that Helen read Thoughts for Buffet, which greatly influenced her. Helen begins experimenting with recipes, which soon turn to creating her own recipes. With Norman's encouragement, Helen again decides to teach, but this time she turns to cooking, not dancing, which Helen continues to do and to enjoy. Helen has been teaching men and women cooking since the 1970s. The most memorable moments in her cooking history were studying under Simone Beck and having the opportunity to teach a class at Kitchen Glamour on the same day as Julia Child. Helen was thrilled to meet Julia and to be able to sit in on her class. Helen's creative flow continued in the 1980s. Not only did she continue teaching cooking classes, and experimenting with new recipes, she also came up with an idea of designing a logbook for people who wish to organize information about important facts about significant people they have met. She called it People Profiles and marketed her product to several different stores and companies. Helen continues to exercise her creativity. In the future, she plans to write a cookbook in addition to teaching cooking classes in her home. Dancer, dancing teacher, inventor, cook, and cooking teacher describes only part of Helen Wachler's accomplishments. Surpassing even these great achievements are her role as a loving mother to her 5 children and 8 grandchildren, and as a devoted, loving wife to husband Norman.
My Helen, I want to wish you a very very happy birthday. And I hope that you have many, many more healthy, happy years, that you share those years with me and our wonderful family. I consider myself lucky to be married to you, very fortunate, and I love you very much.